Okay, well, don't get this part.
Okay, go ahead.
Welcome, everyone, to Art and Tea and to OASIS Fine Art and Craft. We have special guests tonight and a special program. Quite excited. And first, I will begin with the traditional welcome to the land in thanks and gratitude and acknowledgement of the traditional keepers of this land. Their names are not known, but their good works are known, for we live in a beautiful place that's been passed down to us. The traditional keepers over here in Albemarle are the Monacan people, and I don't even know about my colleagues in the valley, but we honor them and all our ancestors that went before and brought us to this day with all the hopes and skills that we can bring to our. Okay, this is it. We're going to get started. We have our guest, Dr. Joanne Gabbin, and nearly Dr. Lauren Alleyne.
Thank you.
So they're going to take it away. Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for coming. There will be time for questions after.
And I want to thank Eve and Barbara for this lovely invitation. I want to say, first of all, congratulations for 20 years of OASIS. If the pandemic had not hit, 150 Franklin Street would have celebrated 25 years in Harrisonburg. So at some point, we're going to have to do that celebration, maybe at 26th year.
Sounds great.
I love the fact that you're our sisters in the arts, and it's just so wonderful to have you in the community. When I first came to Harrisonburg, I realized that it didn't have the art that I thought it should have, and so it was always my idea to do what Toni Morrison did with novels. She said she started writing because she wanted to write the kinds of novels she wanted to read. Well, I wanted to have a place to go where I could see the kind of art that I wanted to see. So I just had to open an art gallery. And we've been thriving for 25 years. And it's just been a joy to have to fulfill that need for art. And certainly OASIS and the Quilt Museum and all the other art establishments make it a very good place to be. I'm happy to be here tonight with Lauren Alleyne, who is the co-editor of our beautiful book, and you have a wonderful view of the cover of the book behind Lauren. And I want to thank you at OASIS for buying copies of the book and making them available to your customers. That's really, really important. So, you know, we are extremely happy about this book. This is the third one that has come out of the Furious Flower program. Even before it was a center, we were able to produce one anthology. The first one was The Furious Flowering of African American Poetry, and that was a collection of essays. The second one that came out in 2004 was the Furious Flower, African American Poetry from the Black Arts Movement to the Present. And now in 2020, this book that has come out of Northwestern University Press called Furious Flower, Seeding the Future of African American Poetry. Now, we believe in using the term Furious Flower. You can see that. And for those of you who might not know what Furious Flower is all about, we are in the business, the first academic center devoted to Black poetry in the nation. And that was for more than 20 years. And so recently, there was another center devoted to Black poetry out of the University of Pittsburgh. So now we are not the first and only, but we're still the first. So, and we love doing what we do. I see Keisha Hughes on the on the on the Zoom, and she has been such a wonderful part of Furious Flower, especially in terms of the children's poetry camp. So well, it's just great to be here to talk about this particular book. And I want to start with a section of the book of the preface. We were fortunate to have Rita Dove to do our preface. And when we read this preface, we said, okay, we don't even have to write an introduction. It was so good that, you know, we were inspired by it. So I just want you to hear just a little about what she said. I think it's worth buying the book, if you want my opinion, just to read the preface. And she writes, when I was Poet Laureate of the United States, I received a multitude of letters, some offering congratulations, some peddling verses, some craving advice, and others dispensing it. One letter from a young mother stood out. She wrote that, quote, poetry needs to be taught to very young children before they get the idea that they cannot write it, don't want to write it, and don't understand it. In a sense, poetry is making the language your own, end quote. I love that sentence. And it has become my mantra ever since. Poetry is making the language your own. If our children are unable to say what they mean, no one will know how they feel. If they have no way to express their lives, how much easier it would be for others to neglect their humanity. If they don't sing out their stories, how will the world hear them? And she goes on to say, this is what we, the poets, the griots, can do. Tell the stories, and the stories beyond the stories. Sing the grief and the joy, the terror and the hope. Unmask the inner malice of the physical rapist, the psychological terrorist, the tyrannical bully. Address the seemingly endless permutations of viciousness and callousness, using the most powerful weapons at our disposal, words. The best words in the best order, words that will get under the skin and rattle the brain and pierce the heart. As Gwendolyn Brooks says, it is lonesome, yes, for we are the last of the loud. Nevertheless, live, conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. And I'll stop there. But, you know, this is a preface, but every word to me is poetic. And she really shows very clearly why we are in this business called poetry, because poetry can say so much. I want to start with reading maybe 2 poems from the book, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, who's going to do another segment for us, and then I'll come back and read maybe 2 more. I love this poem by Terry Ellen Cross Davis because it really expresses very clearly how she's feeling about being a parent. The mother of a boy, a little boy, who will grow up to be a Black man. And as you know, we are going through turmoil in this country over the killing of Black men and women, boys and girls, at the hands of white supremacists, and also the police. So I think she's thinking about this as she writes this particular poem called Knucklehead. My son's head is a fist rapping against the door of the world. For now, it's dressers, kitchen islands, dining room tables that coax his clumsy, creating small molehills of hurt breaching the surface. The ice pack, a cold kiss to lessen the blow, equals a frigid intrusion. A boy cannot be a boy with all this mothering getting in the way. Sometimes the floor plays accomplice, snagging an ankle, elbow, top lip to swell. Other times it's a tantrum when he spills his limbs onto the hardwood, frenzied then limp with anger, tongue clotted with frustration. A splay of 2-year-old emotion voiced in one winding wail. My son cannot continue this path. Black boys can't lose control at 21, 30, even 45. They don't get do-overs. So I let him flail about now. Let him run head first into the wall. Learn how unyielding perceptions can be. Bear the bruising now before he grows, enters a world too eager to spill his blood, too blind to how red it is. So that poem to me is lovely because it connects the innocence with the brutality. And that juxtaposition is just compelling to me. And Terry Cross Davis captures it. And I think she captures it because she knows the power of the word. She also knows the emotion, the love, the understanding of being a mother. So one last one before you hear from Lauren. Let's see. This is a troubled world. So much is going on, and I don't usually go for all the fatalism and all of that, but some of my favorite poems are the ones that tell the truth. We have witnessed such disasters over the last month, floods and fires and natural disasters that we can't control, that we just respond to. So Jacqueline Jones Lamont does a poem. We put so much faith in the power of doors. And I'm sure it comes out of an experience she had with a flood. Yes, we heard it with storm, but we'd heard it before. How we should buy water and board up our windows, test out our flashlights and stock up on gas. What is it you need when you're fleeing your home? When you're hungry and frantic, in need of clean clothes? When the neighborhood's empty and they've shut down one bridge? Toll takers dismissed in the darkening swirl. You pack up the puppies, you water your plants, throw clothes in a suitcase, drive away. Then turn back. You think for a moment. Take your checkbook and cash. Grab your meds and your papers. Pack some photographs too. Snag those cheese enchiladas, a bottle of wine. Those student assignments you've still yet to grade. Their textbooks, your journals, more glasses, your keys. And then you stand watching, just looking around at the TV, the sofa, the CDs, your life, The wood floor you swept last just that afternoon, your backyard, your front yard, this high tide, this sea. She ends the poem with a surprise because she was surprised. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you, as I said earlier, the co-editor of this book. And it was a joy to co-edit this book with Lauren Alleyne. The first two books that came out of the Furious Flower Poetry Center, I edited solo. But it's so much easier when somebody's there helping you to do it. She is also the assistant director of the Furious Flower Poetry Center and associate professor of English and creative writing at James Madison University. She's originally from Jamaica. She's been in this country. I'm sorry, she's originally from, I was thinking about something else. She's originally from Trinidad, and a place that I really enjoy going to. We got her recently from, not recently, but 4 years ago, from the University of Dubuque. So, Lauren, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Joanne, for inviting me to co-edit this anthology, and to OASIS for helping us celebrate it. I am, just always grateful that I wandered into this amazing opportunity called Furious Flower, because, you sort of know on paper what something is, and then you enter it and you're like, oh, ho, ho. And one of my favorite stories to tell is, I started August 25th, and 1 month later, I was doing with Furious Flower a tribute for Maya Angelou, who had passed, right? We celebrate and nurture Black poets, Black poetry. And so, and I get here, Joanne's like, oh, by the way, I put you in the program. So I was, on the stage reciting poetry, driving the van, and that's sort of just what we do, like every single thing we possibly can to make Black poetry accessible and available, to celebrate it. And that's just a great thing to be a part of. One of the things I think is maybe my unique contribution to this anthology, as Joanne mentioned, she did two before, was the idea for a section on poetics. And earlier Eve was saying, I'm a novice to poetry. And it's one of the things I think most fascinating about poetics, because I'm always curious about why people write, what they think they're trying to do when they write, and the answers are always so various. And one of the things we did in this book is we have the entire third section, sixth section actually, is our essays by well-known poets who say what it means to them to write poetry, what they're trying to do when they write a poem. And particularly because this is celebrating the future of African-American poetry, they're also talking in many of the cases about what it means to be a Black poet. And I wanted to introduce just my little segment with a piece from Patricia Smith, who is a phenomenal poet herself. And it's called, "We Are Rapidly Running Out of Ways to Write This World." And the timing of our frustrating wordlessness couldn't be more ominous. If the primary job of poet is that of undaunted witness, it's clear that we no longer have the option of cherry picking what we want to observe, what we must process, what we are driven to respond to. The days of writing as a recreational activity, if those days ever really existed, are long gone. With such a burgeoning platform, and with so many hungering for our lyrical and unfettered take on truth, poets cannot afford to be entertainers. Every swipe of our pens, every clack of our keyboards, every word sputtered into a hot mic must be necessary. There is no longer a way or a reason to turn from our task. And the task is staggering. Every second, there is a body blown lifeless, a war between nations on the edge of spark, a political debauchery, Some injustice so blatant it makes us scream into our cupped hands. We have a soulless and avaricious leader, unleashed white supremacists, devalued Black bodies, and a climate intent on slow murder. The world just keeps happening, and we just keep writing, trying to make the same words, words that are common to loss, common to grief, common to tyranny, fresh and poignant again. We need to lead readers to a door which opens onto new ways to see tragically familiar stories. And I'm skipping ahead. How do we make people sit up and listen to stories they're tired of hearing? How do we make the stories we've told before sound like they're being told for the very first time? We claw for beauty. We write into and through distraction. We smash perspective. We squeeze through the smallest door. Clawing for beauty means looking for the beneath the surface of a story to find a beauty that doesn't exist, can't exist, but somehow does. Even in the most horrible circumstances, something shines, unrelenting and stubborn. Skipping ahead. To do so, we have to search voraciously for the unexpected entry point, a way into the story that surprises and upends expectation. Try on all the shoes in a story, and when those shoes become uncomfortable, start writing. We haven't run out of ways to write the world. The world won't stop, and in our roles as perpetual witness, neither can we. And so I just think that's just such a, again, what is the task? I always love asking poets what they think the task is. And I think helping, for me, readers say, you know, part of what we do is to bear witness. And so whether it is to Jacqueline lived in New York just before Sandy, you know, what the moment of leaving your house in the face of disaster looks like, whether it's, you know, knowing what can happen to your son and loving him even as you fear for him, as we heard with Terry Cross Davis. And I'm going to read two small poems. One is less small than the other, but this is a poem by Opal Moore, because I think that idea of the small door was just so, this time in reading it, it's the thing that stuck out. So when I was trying to decide from our 100 and something poets, what I was going to read tonight, I tried to look for the poems with the small doors. And this one stood out because, you'll hear Opal Moore's poem, Girl with the Golden Contacts at the Walmart. President's Day sale, December 2008, right? So small door, the gold contacts. All right, so the last act of this 400-year tragedy is the thing that I find in your eyes. That thing, that no thing, that emptying of my plastic hand tote. Yes, I lay all my secrets before you on the conveyor belt at the Walmart. I could go to the self-check for privacy, conceal from you the 3 for $99 cellophane of panties, cotton, marked down 20% by the smiley face bouncing ball in honor of our founding fathers, so-called, because they found us, shirking modernity in the dark continent, time on our hands, you know, asked us if we'd like to participate in America's first job training program, and we agreed, and booked a middle passage right up to your checkout domain, to you, regal in your global garb, blue and gold, and your own accessorizing amber contact lenses. I've got vegetables, this is a super Walmart, collards, such a hassle at the self-check. So I lay cheap drawers before you on your conveyor belt, and collards, and KY jellies, 3 Musketeers, a pint of Cherry Garcia, so many privacies barcoded to the National Data Center. My 20% discount makes a no-show. You flick your eerie golden eyes, gold as the bouncing ball, but unsmiling, dandle my sweatshop slave-made panties languorously aloft to inquire, are these marked down? She said they marked down. This is how we share our secrets now, in bits and bites conveyed beneath gold-skinned eyes on President's Days made for shopping and for women like us to look askance and forget our oceans, our suns, our pain of secrets we used to share in a single glance between sisters. Opal Moore, Tiny Door.
Wow.
um,
Works for me.
I'm going to read another story of connect/disconnection, again to like large events through a small event, by Lauren Russell. And this is an excerpt from a book-length poem she calls Descent. My grandpa Russell had a thing about Africa and made snide remarks about the cousin who gave his children nonsense Swahili name and those Africans at church who only put $1 in the collection plate. When I was 10 or 12, Grandpa said something like, "What's this back to Africa? You want to swing from trees?" Grandpa had blue-black eyes. I don't want to say the closest color was sapphire. I do not want to say my grandpa was a dark-skinned black man with eyes like sapphires. I want to say my grandpa's eyes lied, but that's not right. Their view of the truth was large. Grandpa was a 5-year-old in Waco when a white mob, 15,000 strong, burned Jesse Washington alive. Once, Grandpa said, "I haven't seen lynchings, but I've seen the result of lynchings." My grandpa of the blue-black eyes did not lie, but his view of the truth was flawed. Jesse Washington hung from a tree, roasting over a bonfire for 2 hours, lowered up and down. He tried to climb the chain, but the mob cut off his fingers, cut off his balls. I said, "Grandpa, nobody in Africa is swinging from trees." Lauren Russell, Descent.
Wow.
That was amazing, Lauren. Amazing. These poems carry such bracing truths, you know, and sometimes they're hard to hear. I noticed that we have our sisters and our daughters joining us. Thank you all. This is wonderful. I want to continue with a poem that is about global warming. We have people in this country who don't believe there's climate change, but the earth is warming, and we need to be concerned about it. A wonderful poet by the name of Mariah Desha Akeri Tali. It's called Global Warming Blues. The ocean had a laugh when it saw the shore. I said the ocean had a big, big laugh when it saw the shore. It pranced on up the boardwalk and pummeled my front door. It is interesting, Lauren, how we picked out poems about doors, you know? We were connecting, so let me get back to the poem. There's no talking to the ocean full of strength and salt. No, there's no bargaining with the water so full of strength and salt. I'm a mama working 2 jobs. Global warming ain't my fault. I said, please water, I recycle. Got a garden full of greens. I said, look at here, I compost. Got a garden full of greens. Water say big men drill and oil spill. We both know what that means. Now my town is just a river, bodies floating, water's high. My town is just a river, but I'm too damn mad to cry. Seems like for big men's living, little folks have got to die. Seems like for big men's living, little folks have got to die. So that perspective is kind of chilling. we see, well, I don't have to explain it. It was really patently clear what she's talking about there. I have one more poem that I'd like to read. And this poem is very personal. 5 years ago in Charleston, South Carolina, a young deranged man went into a church, sat down with the parishioners, had Bible study with them, and then pulled out a rifle and shot them, 9 of them, point blank. It's personal to me because, first of all, it was an AME church. I'm an AME, that's African Methodist Episcopal. First Black church in the country devoted to people of color and faith. So this was Emmanuel, African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston. It's also personal to me because the senior pastor there, Clementa Pinckney, was one of the ones killed. And I had met him maybe 2-3 years before. He had welcomed me into that church. And it's still eerie to remember that church and being in that space and understand how it's been changed because of the blood. In this poem by someone by the name of Courtney Lamar Charleston, he writes on Charleston, and he says, for the innocents massacred at Mother Emanuel AME Church. 9 confirmed dead. The blue backlighting from the computer screen underscores their black faces and the rows of teeth therein lit like vigil candles. Tonight, genuflect seems the fool's gambit. I recite their names, one by one in the shape of a circle. But I don't receive an acknowledgement and thunder from above. I'm left only with the begging of 2 palms pressed together and the proof it wasn't enough. My body, a stack of mirrors, falls through itself. I am several nouns over the course of descent. Her silver whistle, her public library card, his set of starter hair clippers humming into the darkness with no plug in a wall. I crash through the gray of the matter, go cleanly through the roof of the church without making a hole, tracing a curious sparrow. But like a holy bird, I land softly on my feet. All the expected ornaments are here. I see the stained glass windows overlooking the pulpit and 2 paintings of Christ on the adjacent walls, crucifixion and resurrection, and all 9 of their bodies on the ground, not quite cold. I pick up an annotated student Bible, looking for Jesus's words for Lazarus, but struggle because all the text is in red, still fresh. I move through the heart of the building, noting the belongings that will house their ghosts. Here are the church's fans for Sunday service next to her feet. Here the sentimental wallet holding photographs of 2 blossoming girls. Here's a small wooden cross affixed to a ring of keys that could open any of many doors. Here their scuffed glasses, his navy backpack, his Chicago Bulls snapback, his black and red Sony headphones, familiar looking looping lyric Nina, voice strained through the wire, singing blood on the leaves, blood on the leaves, blood on the leaves, the bright face of his smartphone, jukebox glowing unattended. Missed call, Tyrone. Missed call, Torrance. Missed call, Dominique. Missed call, TJ. I pick up all their many things and lay them in a line at the altar. I find cloth that had been reserved for the clergy and choir in a closet close by. Draw them over the 6 women and then the 3 men. I weep and I weep and I weep, and I ask the rhetorical question, why? But this time receive an answer. I'm here to kill Black people, he says. Standing behind me, I sweat a bead of blue light. The thunder enters the back of my head and exits my mouth in a manner of prayer. I disperse like a cloud split by lightning, charged electrically by race. I'm erased, surely, completely gone, like I wasn't even there, like I wasn't even there.
Oh,
That's a beautifully painful poem, but I wanted to read it because I wanted to offer a memorial after 5 years for those 9 who perished in such a horrific way. Lauren, take it away.
It wouldn't be a Zoom if you didn't forget to unmute once,
there
right?
you go. Definitely.
I was just saying, it's just, we worked for about 18 months, Joanne, I think, on this collection. And I think I forgot how amazing some of these poems are. So thank you again for inviting us to re-enter this collection in this new way. I wanted to read a couple more. I'll just do poems. And this is one by Delana Dameron called My Resistance is Black. When I look at the black and white footage of seas and seas of marches, when I look at photos of Black leaders with their children in their domestic dens and then without their children, when face to face with riot gear and their suits pressed so straight, I remember the mothers, the sisters, the aunties and neighbors. Somebody is on the front line. Somebody is on the home line. Somebody fried the chicken and washed and cut the greens. Somebody drove or walked, because who would ride those buses, and picked up the dukes and white bread and smoked ham. Somebody cut the crusts. Somebody boiled hot water for the sanka, set out the cups and saucers. Somebody changed the mountains of diapers, made pallets for neighbors and co-workers as children, stretched the casserole for 6 instead of the usual 4. When the time came and the front line presented itself, somebody made a decision who would go out, and somebody made a decision that all bellies would be full and would be welcomed home to something sweet, a butter pound cake with Meyer lemon icing. Maybe I would have written lesson plans on the blackboard, taught the babies resistance songs. Maybe I would have been the somebody home to answer the one call. And I love that. Again, smallest door, right? Just a really wonderful poem. This poem by Kevin Simmons is called Upright, and I just think it's so beautiful. Upright. It was from the bottom of my upright piano, behind the panel, beneath the keyboard, that I drew my deepest adolescent breaths, where I hid gay porn in the late 80s, practicing my scales and gospel chords above Hung and Blue Boy, freshmen and inches, men inside my piano, hammers sweetening the wood. My fingers and wrists positioning, elbows drawn in, my foot pumping the pedal, sounding and sounding until it rose to art. Dog-eared pages that summoned my quiver and shameless music, where I binged on youth in my messy bed sheets. The muscle memory of how I grow up, a brown instrument with hidden stables for my ever-bruising, unbreakable stallions. And it's, I mean, just wonderful because he's an award-winning musician and now, and I just love that description at the end, that those stallions. And I'm gonna close with a poem by Anastasia Renee, which is it kind of bookends Eve's beginning. It's a prayer for the unseen. And I thought of it because I think of Patricia's kind of clarion call to be witness, not only to the things we see, but for the unseen in all the ways that they do and do not manifest. May you haunt every eyelid that has fallen closed to your brightness. May your shadows cover the day with lightning bugs and drive-through ketchup packets. May the moon in your teeth be toothpicked by the possibility of passion's rage. May the swamp of your fold be an endless sparkle for the rooster's morning cluck. Right?
Oh,
Thank you.
wow.
Very good.
I'll try to put those. I've been trying to keep up putting the poems in the chat, and I will try to put the 3 I just did.
That's really wonderful of you to have done that.
You can
But
see
of
why I'm
course-
so proud of this book.
Yes.
This is just a sampling of what's in there. We have, as Lauren said, more than 100 poets. Really, when we add up all of the people who contributed, more than 140 poets contributed to this collection, and we're really, really proud of it. And we're hoping that people will pick it up and read these poems, not so much for entertainment, but for understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you get the poems? Do you solicit poems, or do people just send them in to you, or?
Well, we certainly solicited these poems. We asked poets that we knew of to contribute poems, and we often got maybe sometimes 3, sometimes 6, and we had to
Winnow.
winnow them down. That's exactly right.
That's sure.
Yeah, and sometimes it was very, very difficult. But, and that was the wonder of having another eye, because I found that many of the poems I chose, Lauren chose as well, and it was not that difficult to decide among those that were not in that common pile. So we're really hoping that these poets who are here will be the voices that you will be reading for the next 25 years. And it's just amazing to me to think about the poets who started as very young people at the first Furious Flower Poetry Center. Just got the news today that Kevin Young, amazing poet, who is the director of the Schomburg Library in New York, has just taken the position of president of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. That 25 years ago, he was just a young man starting out as a poet. And I could just go on and name people who were there at that first conference. Elizabeth Alexander, amazing poet who was the inaugural poet for Barack Obama in his first term. She is now the president of the Andrew Mellon Foundation. I mean, and I can just go through the list of people that we debuted, if you will, at Furious Flower. So we have a few minutes for questions.
I was actually just going to follow up on that, Joanne, to say we try to take poems from emerging because it's seeding the future, right? So we try to get those young poets that showed up 25 years ago of today. And then the poetic section, those essays on why we write poetry were by, you know, the more seasoned poets. And I think it was one of the funniest email exchanges when I explained that to Van. And he was just like, oh, I'm an old head now. Just like, well, I wasn't calling you old. I was calling you, yes, I was, wasn't I?
You know? He has arrived. He has already arrived. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the missions of Furious Flower is really to keep Black poetic legacy engaged with intergenerational, you know, pointing out, hey, you know, you've moved on to a different category and sort of making way for the new and the old. So I just think that's one of the things that's part of the book is just having these different generations have different kinds of conversation in the same space.
What a thrill. Good time for me to mention that these books are available in Harrisonburg at OASIS Fine Art and Craft, signed by the authors. Signed copies while they last. They're going fast, folks. We can have time for some, and there is a hand-raising facility with Zoom. Y'all probably know more about it than me. I'm learning. But if you go to the participants section at the bottom of your screen, then there's a place at the bottom of that list that says raise hand and allows me to see who's interested in, for us not to talk over one another, which apparently the nation has had enough of that since last night. So
yeah.
But enough of that. And while I'm waiting for hands to go up, I will leave a space for people to just speak. I would love to tell you ladies that you have changed me. You, every single word touched me. I mean, I can feel it in my body, open my heart. And I get it. I see what you're on about now. I can, I can become a poetry lover myself. I'm going to start with this book.
Yeah, right. That's wonderful. Yeah.
How wonderful.
Dr. Gabbin, 2 questions, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Do you write poetry yourself?
I do. Unlike Lauren, I haven't published a book of poems. I published individual poems, and at some point in my life, God willing, I will call all of those poems that I've written over the years together, and maybe they will see the light of day. But I've been writing poetry since I was in high school. But you know, it's interesting that I didn't see myself as a poet until maybe 15 years ago. And I look back, and my husband dutifully collects my poetry. And I look back and I said, man, these are good. I see myself as a critic more than a poetry person, as a poet. But I used my time to do critical work on Gwendolyn Brooks and Sterling Brown and Margaret Walker, many people. But I didn't spend time publishing poetry as Lauren has done. Lauren is a prize-winning poet. And just recently, she became a finalist for the Library of Virginia Poetry Prize. So we'll know soon whether she is not just a finalist, but the winner of that. So she's really the poet in the Furious Flower Poetry Center. But I'm the lover of poetry who sometimes writes poetry.
That's wonderful. And we'll have to have a party for you, Lauren. So let's see what happens. My other question is, have you seen a difference between the poetry when you started and the poetry now? Is it evolving? Is the language changing? Are different issues being addressed?
Yeah, Lauren, take that one. You talked about that yesterday. Do you want to take that?
I
Is
don't
the
remember
poetry changing?
yesterday. I mean, I think it's in the way, the big answer to that question is, of course, right? In some ways, if the poem is really speaking to the issues, the moment, the experiences, then it must necessarily evolve, right? In fact, one of the hardest things I have to break my poor, unsuspecting introduced poetry students of is trying to write like Shakespeare. I'm like, everybody spoke like Shakespeare when Shakespeare was writing Shakespeare. Why are you trying to write like, when last did you say thou? So as our language evolves, I was just like, we don't wear shoulder pads anymore. Styles change, right? They might come back, but they ain't back yet, right? And the sonnet has made a comeback 500 years later, right? And so I think that style evolves, language evolves, cultures evolve. The things that were taboo, thinking of Kevin writing this in the 80s, and then it appears in a book like this. I mean, I just feel like that happens. And then I feel at the same time, what moves us to poetry does not change.
That's exactly
right. Whatever, if we think of the poem as interior landscape being made visible, our urge to communicate, our urge to testify, our urge to see beauty, right? Whatever is the thing you write poetry for, it ain't new, right? Yeah. And so I think that there's that wonderful paradox, right? That what gets us there is different because it comes through the unique lens of our time, our person, ourselves. But then the thing that we channel is just always the same and circulating. Does that make sense? That's my
it makes perfect sense. And you're absolutely right. There are things that will not change about poetry. However, there is the technical issue that we are faced with, how in fact we get the word out there. And I think technology is changing the way poets deliver what they have to say. So, and those changes are often very dynamic and very engaging. In fact, we heard a lecture yesterday by McKinley Melton, who's talking about orality, literature, and performance in African American poetry. And he knows about how the poetry on the page can be animated through performance, and that performance can be distributed, if you will, all over the planet, and how that changes how people receive it in different ways. So it's so exciting to see how technology will alter the deliverance of poetry. When back in the 1800s, we had this wonderful book, that we sat by the candlelight and we read and we enjoyed. Yeah, but it's different now.
I was just going to say, the book is a technology, right? That's one of the things I feel like people always say, technology. I was like, this is a technology. It's just we've gotten so used to it. It feels natural, but it's so made. And then, also the orality is old and as much as it's new. And so again, that idea of evolution, we have two ways of giving language. We speak it and we write it, right? And how that speaking and writing occurs changes what we speak, we're able to speak and write about, who we're able to speak to, who your audience is. That's another thing that changes with technology, and all of the things. So yeah.
I see my daughter came on. Jacia, you want to ask a question?
Hold on. Heather Banks has had her hand up
for
a while. So
I wondered if my former student, Yona Harvey, who was one of your readers, has something to do with that University of Pittsburgh Center. Yes?
Well, I think she certainly was aware of it. And she was there at the time that it was established. And Terrence Hayes and Dawn Lundy Martin were the initial directors of the CAP, the Center for African American Poetry and Poetics. That's the acronym CAP. So it's a wonderful center. It has a little bit more money than we have at this point, I think. So I think they're going to do great things.
Thanks, Heather.
One more thing is that I got on Facebook and noticed that Jericho Brown is quite ill and has gone to Mayo Clinic and was asking.
Yes, that's exactly right. He is asking for our prayers. It's so interesting the way life goes. Just a week ago, I was interviewing him for the launch of Kevin Young's book at the Schomburg, and he looked fine. We had a lively conversation, and a week and a half later, he's asking for prayers as he goes to Mayo Clinic. I did email him and text him, and his spirits are high. I sent him electronic flowers, and he sent back a thank you. So we're prayerful that whatever this is, he's going to get by it. He's going to get over it. He's going to come back to us well. But thank you, Heather, for mentioning that.
Yeah, thank you. Gives us a chance tonight to send our good thoughts.
That's right.
Is there any other question?
Well,
I'm restraining myself, so.
We were going to have Dr. Gabbin's daughter talk, right? It didn't.
Oh, that'd be lovely, yeah. Jesse?
Hello, how y'all doing? This was great.
Hey.
Hello. I have, of course, been by proxy with Furious Flower since its inception. So I've seen the past, the present, and we're looking into the future. But I wanted to ask this question, and I'm hoping that both my mom and Lauren and all others who want to chime in can, because we are so heavy on STEM, which is wonderful, science, technology, engineering, and math. But I think we have to go head on and put more emphasis on the arts. And of course, with poetry, it is synonymous with the arts. Would you please just take it and freestyle it, if you will, with a response to how do we push the young people toward the arts, toward poetry, and what kinds of things are you all doing in Furious Flower to go ahead on and continue that press?
That's a great question. I wish Keisha would come online here. What we decided that we were going to grow poets in Harrisonburg. So for 16 years, every year without fail, we've had a children's poetry camp. Now we call it the Children's Creativity Camp. But every year without fail since 2005, we've done that because we think that, as Rita Dove said, we want to get these children before they say they can't do poetry. And we want to say to them, you can do poetry. You can use words and bring power to those words. Lauren added to our emphasis on young people by founding the Slam Academy. And that particular academy seeks to get enthusiasts for poetry from who are 13 to 16 years old. So we are doing what we can to encourage young people to not only understand poetry, but write poetry themselves. Keisha, you want to say something?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Hughes.
Hey, Lauren. It's so
Thanks
great.
for coming.
Thank you for putting this on. It's been lovely sharing space with all of you. But yes, I've had the pleasure and the joy of my life working with Furious Flower through the Creativity Camp. And one of the ways that I've been working with creativity recently is I also teach yoga. And so create, like, combining yoga and mindful movement with creativity. And so, like, encouraging people to draw inward so that they can then express what's going on. And so much about poetry seems to be about, you know, observation, and, as you were saying, witnessing and embodying, you know, the things that are happening around us. And, you know, as Rita Dove has said, as Dr. Gabbin has said, you know, I think it's so important to start kids early with those things, and they already think that way. So to just encourage it and, you know, let their sense of wonder and joy around the world and words grow.
That's beautiful. Thank you,
Mhm.
Keisha. You can see why year after year we bring Keisha back to be a teacher. She just inspires these young people, and we have such a beautiful rainbow of children coming to our children's creativity camp. Yes. Jessie, I hope that starts to answer your question.
I wanted to say one more thing, because one of the things that we do at Fierce Flower is we also teach teachers. And I think that's critical, actually, to helping young people get into poetry, because one of the most sort of enlightening moments in my career around that idea was when I was at the University of Dubuque, and one of my colleagues in education who taught teachers came to me, and she's just like, would you come do the poetry unit on my class? Every year, I just try to get through it as fast as I can because I don't get poetry and we have to do it. And I thought, oh my gosh, she is teaching teachers in this without a fear, right? And then what are they then passing on to their students? And so I think one of the most important things that we do is also teach teachers how to think about poetry, how to regain some of that elasticity that, like, Common Cores and standardized blah, blah, blah can sometimes sort of bleach out of whatever might have drawn them in the first place, you know. And I went to her class for 3 years in a row. And she, you know, did all the things, and I talked about the importance of play and that sort of idea that, you know, the vulnerability in the poem, the plasticity, just like you're not going to write something deep. You know, if you start off like that, where can you go? You know, and so that idea of mindfulness, of breathing, of paying attention. I was just like, what did you see or smell today? Try to put that in words, like, right? So just the idea of a poetics of attention for me is really important. But, you know, after the 3 years of doing it, I got busy and she didn't email me. And so I said, hey, Angie, what's up? And she's just like, you would be so proud of me. I taught it myself. And I was just like, my work here is done, you know, which was in good time because, like I said, I got busy with a lot of other things. But, like, you know, that week was so critical for me because I thought, oh my gosh, like, I have to fix these folks so that by the time my students get to me, they don't come with those walls so high up that then I spent all semester trying to break down. And so, yeah, I think that's another way that we get to the kids is through their teachers who they spend a lot of time with.
Great.
Eve?
Yes, I have a question if we have time. Now I want to know how each of you found your way to this work and this world of words.
Oh my. For me, that would take another hour.
Yeah, I
But the
figured.
short version of it is that, you know, we start as children loving words. We start with the nursery rhymes. We start there. And it started with my love of the library and borrowing books and my mother's intention to take me as far as she could take me. And by the time I got to the 2nd grade, my mother, who had a 4th grade education, said, I've taken you as far as I can. And I knew that I had to honor her love for learning by going farther in my own studies. So that's how I came to it. So, but that allowed me to know that I wanted to teach English. in high school that got me to the University of Chicago, that got me into a PhD program that I didn't know that I was going to get into. And by that time, I realized that I was now unfit for high school teaching, that I needed to go straight to the university. And so I've been teaching at the university level for 50 years.
Oh,
I'm teaching
unbelievable.
since 1970.
Wow.
And I have loved every bit of it. As you can tell from my saying 50 years, it's getting close to the time when I should, if I have any sense, retire. But I'm going to hang in there for a little bit longer and see what the end is going to be. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. And what about Lauren?
I'm smiling because my mom is on this call, and I was just chatting her that I'm probably going to call on you, but I don't know if she wants me to make her turn on the camera. I think that, you know, I get this question a lot, like, what brought you to poetry? And I was thinking of Patricia Smith and the Doors. You know, there's so many doors. There's so many doors. I was laughing because my mother was a teacher in elementary school for 37 years. And I was very much encouraged in my love of reading and writing. And she will tell me I started reading at, I don't know, some ridiculously young age. And, you know, I always knew the words that were bigger than my teachers believed I did on my own. And they would ask me to spell them. I would like side-eye them like they were like, whatever, like enormous is a word. You know, and so all of the things are flooding in that don't usually come up when, you know, but if your mom's in the chat, it just kind of sparks different things. My sister sang calypso. I wrote her calypsos. So I was doing that since I was 11 years old until I left Trinidad for college. I was a science student. And so I did not think I was going to, you know, be a poet by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't even know that was a thing. And moreover, I definitely did not think I was going to be a teacher, because I said it to my mom all the time, I'm not going to be doing that. And now, at least mine aren't the little sweaty, you know, 8-year-olds. But I think the thing that is maybe the sort of one of, again, so many pivotal moments was I came to the States to be, and get ready, a radiologic science and nuclear medical technology.
Wow.
And I stumbled into an honors English course because I'd always done well. And I fell in love with my teacher, right? Who was just amazing. I didn't fall in love with my teacher, but I just loved taking those classes. I loved that work. And he was just like, what are you doing? You know? And so for how many of you is it the teacher that was one of the people who, you know, really changed your life? And I think Brother Edward saying to me, he's like, Lauren, you were meant to be educated, not trained. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I like the sound of it. You know? And, you know, Mom, I'm changing my major to English, bye. And in my junior year, no more anatomy for me. And, you know, I just figured, if I'm getting on this train, I'm going to get on all the way. And so here, it's been a good ride. Right, Mom?
Wow.
And JMU is fortunate to have attracted Lauren Alleyne. So we are just ecstatic that she's here. Our own poet. I can't say homegrown, but she's here now, transplanted.
Yeah. Wow.
So, this has been lovely.
I was just about to say those very words. We're so grateful, and grateful to everyone who joined us.
Wait, if can I ask Lauren one question?
Yes.
Absolutely.
First, thank you. Obviously, I love them both. And I love the book. Lauren, do you write differently about Trinidad than you do about the USA?
Do I write differently about Trinidad than I write?
And I don't even know what that question is asking, but is your
Mhm.
writing experience different about, I think you feel me.
I think yes, for the simple reason that when I write about Trinidad, I'm writing memory. And when I write America, I'm writing my life, my present, right? And that necessarily changes things. I would say, I think for me, the split in immigration is so clear. I left Trinidad a month after my 18th birthday.
Yeah.
I had been a schoolgirl, in my mama's house. So, a proper Catholic schoolgirl, went to convent, like, and then I went to New York City. And so that fissure is very, very clear for me. What are credit cards and how do I get one? And how do I not run? Just like all the adulting, as they say now, right, is something that happened, and also the consciousness, like I'm aware that there are all sorts of social issues, and especially because I wrote Calypso, right? And again, it's not only hot, 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 but actually the root of Calypso is social commentary. And so in so many ways, what I think is how I bring Trinidad into my writing always is I don't really know. I'm sort of like Patricia. I'm like, what else is there to talk about, right? If we're not talking about the things that change and affect and impact our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to challenge power, which is what Calypsos do every year. They're like singing about the government, like singing about these politicians and why don't they fix the holes in the road, and everything is fair game, right? But I didn't have that consciousness as a child, right? And so I think my Trinidad poems are more family oriented. They're more, again, sort of wistful in certain ways than that wistfulness of young Black children isn't really a thing that America allows. It's definitely required and summoned different language for sure.
Bessie, at some point, I would love for you to answer that same question. So we're going to have to throw it back at you because it's an excellent question.
So she's going to be prepared.
And yeah, you'll be prepared to answer it because, she said something that was so interesting one time. She said that when she goes to Kenya, when she goes home, she goes there and she visits family. And as she's coming back here, halfway across the Atlantic, she starts not to feel Kenyan so much as Black. And it's about the social construct of racism in this country that forces that feeling on you. So, but this is a paper, Bessie, you need to write. I would love that. Bessie is one of our genius professors at James Madison University, and she's also the founder of AAAD studies at JMU. So Bessie, come on and just say a word.
Just the coordinator, not the founder. Just the coordinator. No. This is your night tonight, and I'm just so happy to be able to celebrate you. I'm sorry my last meeting ran too late, and I looked at my watch and I thought, it's 7:30. I'm supposed to be somewhere, so my apologies.
I'm so glad you could come.
Thank you, but I honor these two amazing scholars and artists and creatives and activists, and I am just so blessed to have them in my life, as are all of us. We should be so lucky. We are lucky. Them here for a long time, so thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Bessie.
Well, I certainly recognize the honor. I was very butterflies all day, like, oh, I have to take good care of these honored guests, and you've just been wonderful. I
feel like Eve's screen is frozen.
Yes.
I think she was
do
going
something
to
similar again someday in the future.
She was going to thank everyone, and we'd love to do it again. So tell us when the next book, or when you want to just do some readings, we'll do it, right? So Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank
you
you,
so
Eve.
much
And
for
all of the
having us.
members of OASIS, thank you for the lovely invitation.
Thank
We
you so
appreciate it.
much. Thank you so much for your wonderful book and your good nature and all that.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. See you again.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.